welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV. We just handed Lise a big treasure, dealt with Fordola for now, and Pipin informed us that Sultana Nanamo wishes to talk to me personally. So, let's deal with her. In a good way, of course. Not a bad way. Well, the question of how to put the Mad King's treasure to good use shows no sign of answering itself. Shall we be about it, Ironwald? I'm at your beck and call. And I should be getting back to my own tasks. I organized a squad to head down into the ruins and start preparing for the big meeting. Oh, send Nanamo my regards, Serenia. And ours too, if you please. We shall see you on your return. Okay, Doorman, would you let me in? My lady, it's an honor to face... It was an honor to face you in a tournament. With a paladin. Since that day, I have spent my every spare moment in the practice yard striving to attain some fraction of your skill with a blade. Forgive me, you're here for the audience with the Sultana. Please proceed.
I thank you for answering my summons in these most interesting times. You have been busy.
I have?
The liberation of Alamigo will have far-reaching consequences, and there is a matter upon which I would seek your counsel. I speak of Raoban and his future. All know the tale of his rise from penniless refugee to member of the Syndicate and General of the Immortal Flames. Yet though he has come to call Ul'dah home, it will never be his homeland. He is a son of Alamigo. And now that she is free, I thought it only a matter of time before he sought my leave to return to her. Indeed, I had resigned myself to his loss. Suffice it to say, I was greatly surprised to hear him speak so lightly of handing over the reins in Alamigo and retaking his place at my side. I will welcome him with open arms, of course. He is my most trusted advisor and my dearest friend. But I have known the man a long time, and beneath that steely gaze, I spied a flicker of doubt. Whether Raoban chooses to remain in Ul'dah or return to Alamigo, I only wish that he do so with a heart unburdened by guilt or regret. Yet, how can he freely make such a choice, knowing how much I depend on him? It is past time that I learned to discharge my duties as a Sultana alone. I must go forth and see my realm with my own eyes, and hear the wind with my own ears. Might I have your company for a brief adventure? Wonderful. Allow me a moment to change into something a touch less conspicuous, and I will join you outside.
But only a touch, huh? What do you think of Lilira the Merchant's daughter? This is the disguise I don when I wish to leave a palace and observe my subjects unnoticed. Ordinarily, Papashan would accompany me, but for this particular outing I need an advisor, not a minder. And that is why I requested your company. Over the course of your many adventures, you have met people from all walks of life, in every corner of Eorzea, and I would make use of your worldly experience. Now let us be on our way. Our first destination is Stone's Throw, just beyond the Gate of Nal. Look upon those procession of tattered tents. These refugees camp in squalor, at the mercy of the elements and Fennerland's predators both. The city's mighty walls offer safety, but the streets overflow with people as it is. And unless blessed by the hand of Nalt himself, no refugee could ever hope to afford a dwelling in Ul'dah. 20 years have passed since the fall of Alamigo, and 5 since the calamity. The plight of the poor has grown more desperate, not less. As Sultana, the blame falls upon me. The hands have been tied, Your Grace. Yes, my authority is limited, and that is an obstacle I must work to overcome. Shall we press on? I would follow the road to the unholy air. It was here, that in this wholly unremarkable place, that my mother and father met their doom. I was but a child at the time. My parents were returning from an inspection of our interests in Eastern Fennerland when an untimely rockslide crushed their carriage. To this day, it's not certain if the incident was simply misfortune or an expertly planned assassination. Rauban once offered to reopen the investigation and bring me the truth he assumed I must surely crave, but I refused. Even if my parents' deaths were orchestrated by the monetarists, we could only have brought their hirelings to justice. The true villains, those who plotted to put me on the throne as a biddable puppet, were ever beyond our reach. Thus did I plan to strip the merchants of their power and place our nation in the hands of the citizens, quite unaware of the consequences my action would have for you and yours. I shudder to think of many goodly souls paid the price for my naivety. But I am no longer a child reciting words with witless obedience, and I will not be used as a pawn in the monetarist's damnable games. Forgive me my outburst. You're one of a few people to whom I feel I can speak my mind. Come, let us return to Ul'dah and visit the Colosseum. From the moment I became Sultana, I found myself thrust into an endless parade of document signing and ceremonies. For years I simply signed where I was told to sign and sat where I was told to sit, blissfully oblivious of what any of it meant. Yet one good thing did come from the ignominious chapter in my life, for it was during an official visit to the Colosseum that I first met Rauban. The match I had been invited to attend was not at all what I expected. They had pitted the Bull of Alamigo against some dozen or so rival gladiators. Blinkered though I was, I could not stand so obvious an injustice and demanded to see a fair fight, one man against another, and my royal wish was duly granted. It was not until later that I learned of a gambling win which had arranged for Rauban to die on the sands that day. Regardless, my intervention meant that Rauban had but a single opponent to dispatch, which he duly did. When he knelt before me to receive a winner's purse, he swore that he would one day offer me his blade in service. Surrounded as I was by liars and manipulators, I confess I dismissed it as a pleasant piece of theater. But as you know, Rauban is a man of his word. Though it took him another 5 years of fighting on the blood sands, he amassed a fortune so great as to buy not only his freedom, but a seat on the syndicate. And then I had my blade.
Your Grace, you mustn't! The danger is too great! Please, Your Grace, come back! I beg of you!
It seems you're the one who needs looking after, Master Shum. Raban!
Your Grace, I have kept the promise made.
So you have, and in turn, so too shall I keep mine. With your winnings, you have become one of the 6 most wealthy souls in all Uldar, and so, as tradition dictates, Rauben Aldin, you have earned yourself a seat on the Syndicate. May your new station garner you still greater glories.
I am honored, Your Grace, and vow to serve with every fiber of my being from this day till my last. Long live the Sultana, and long live Uldar!
Words cannot well express what that man means to me. There are others who care deeply for my well-being, of course. Papa Shan's love for me is as that of a grandsire for his grandchild. But upon matters of governance, I cannot turn to bodyguards and maidservants for counsel. Rauban, with the authority of a syndicate position, was the first sword I could wield. His was the only edge which could cut the strings that bound me. We must make haste. My absence will not go unnoticed by the Sultan's sworn for long, and there are other places I would visit. To the Sana or Sari. When the calamity threatened, Rauban led the Alliance force into battle on the plains of Cardano. And I remained here. I prayed with all my heart that Archon Louis would have the power to rouse the 12. Since that day, I've made a custom of visiting the shrine during each of my little excursions. Here, I seek the blessing of Thal, reflect upon my choices, and ask myself if I'm fulfilling my duties as Sultana. You're widely celebrated as a champion because you have led the line in 100 battles for the good of Eorzea. In much the same way, I believe the measure of a monarch lies in how she leads her people in times of adversity. If I'm to be a Sultana worthy of a name, I cannot turn a blind eye to the troubles facing Uldar. I have chosen my path, Serenia. With Alamigo now freed from imperial chains, I finally see a way to aid the refugees. Already, many displaced Alamigans seek to begin the long trek home. And as you well know, our artisan school shall be waiting to accept any who wish to learn new trades. Realistically, however, it will take years for such training to yield tangible benefits. But we do not have years. These people will need shelter and employment if they are to survive, and this time, the Uldan treasury will provide. Precisely where and how to allocate the necessary funds is of course another question. Well, why not seek the advice of one who employs refugees? A wise suggestion. May I have a visit to the Gold Source in order. Its proprietor is a member of a syndicate, and he's one of a few who pay refugees a fair wage. I wonder, are you acquainted with Godbird Mandeville? Then I need not explain his eccentric nature. Let us make our way to the landing, and I will see that word is sent to the Gold Saucer. Godbird should only be too glad to receive us. I've ridden aboard a public airship before, but this shall be my first visit to the Gold Saucer. I must confess some excitement. Seek passage to the Gold Saucer. I heard a scripture of its splendor, yet I never dreamed it would be so bright and inviting. No, I couldn't possibly. We did not come here to fritter away the royal coin. Godpop will be expecting us. Come, let us head directly to the lounge and ignore these gaudy temptations. Aboard. I believe this is where we are to meet Lord Mandible. Shall we sit while we await his coming? My apologies, Your Grace. I've kept you waiting. No apologies are necessary, Godbert. My request was sudden and you were kind to make yourself available on such short notice. When my son's good friend and the Sultana herself come calling, there's no more important engagement. As to the purpose of my visit, I would have your thought on how the Crown might best aid the refugees residing in Fanalan. You are aware, I'm sure, that many of the Alamigo's displaced sons and daughters long to return to their newly liberated homeland, and you are also aware of how they will suffer without shelter and work to sustain them. I would use our nation's wealth to spare them that suffering. What advice have you for me on the matter of how it might best be distributed? The unusual circumstance of our meeting and your Grace's choice of companion would suggest to me a desire for an honest and unvarnished opinion. I shall give you one. My advice to you is stop. Taxing Uldar's wealth to save Alamigan refugees is a terrible, terrible idea. You oppose my proposition? Most emphatically, I agree with your Grace that the refugees must have housing and employment, but what profit is there for Uldar in this arrangement? Profit? After all you have done for Giabania's displaced, I thought you the very last person to seek to benefit from their misfortune. Forgive me, Your Grace, but you appear to be laboring under a misapprehension. It's a fine endeavor to support one's fellow man. I fear, however, that your stance is one born of pity. Your intent is to save the refugees, is it not? For all our potential, we are indolent creatures by nature. If unconditional charity is all we know, then we begin to rely upon it, to expect it. And then we must consider Uldar's own poor and downtrodden. Should they hear of you spending the nation's coin, not to improve their lot, but to nurture the distant citizens of Alamigo, it is unlikely they will applaud your generosity. Surely it is not your Grace's intention to foster new resentments, but to spread goodwill? Indeed. Then any support I pledge to the refugees must promote self-sufficiency, while also serving the interests of the people of Uldar. Exactly so. Such an arrangement will create a far more equitable relationship with the returning Alamigans, even as it generates the revenue required to win the approval of your subjects. You have given me much to ponder, Lord Mandible. I thank you for your candor. When you see him doing the Hildebrand quest line, at least as far as I played it, I'm far from finished with that one. He always appears just goofy, but look at this place. This wasn't built by a stupid man. That man is rich, and he earned it. Profit. The thought never even crossed my mind. But standing about lamenting my naivety will not do anyone any good. I shall consider my lesson learned and press on. Serenia, are you perchance acquainted with any successful merchants? If my attempt at philanthropy is obliged to reap a profit, it would seem wise to consult someone with a knack for business. Ordinarily, I would not trust any agent of the East Aldena Trading Company, but if you hold this Hancock fellow in high esteem, I'm content to be led by you. You may repay my faith by joining distant Kugana and speak with him on my behalf. Eager though I am to visit those shores, I have not the leisure for a lengthy sea voyage. Now, assuming we'll travel as adventurers are wont to do, I shall await your report by the Aetherite in Ul'dah. A fair journey to you, Serenia, and a swift one, if you please. Serenia, to what do I owe the pleasure? Oh, are you here on business? I beg your pardon? Her Grace the Sultana would have my opinion on how to best invest the wealth of Ul'dah. My dear Serenia, I have you to thank for this recognition, I'm sure. And I'm flattered that you came to me, truly flattered. But why settle for a lowly apprentice when you could have a master? Upon matters of profit, there's no living soul better qualified to advise Her Grace than Chairman Lolorito, a man whose morning exertions are said to fill his garderobe with gold. I should be happy to arrange a meeting with you, say, at the Science Former headquarters in Fenelon. The Waking Sands would seem a suitably neutral venue for negotiations, don't you think? Fare you well, Serenia, and may your dealings prove fruitful. Welcome back, Serenia. Did your merchant friend have any useful advice to share? With Lolorito? And you agreed to this? I'm well aware of his standing in the field of business, but I had hoped to keep the monetarist at arm's length, and him in particular. Nay, I cannot live in fear of a man. I must learn how to treat with him if I am to rule Ul'dah effectively. Very well, I will meet with Lolorito. Let us go on ahead to the Waking Sands and prepare for his coming. We are in Waking Sands, I guess. So this is where the Science first congregated. I heard many tales, but never had occasion to visit. To workmen, the hour of a meeting was near, and I would gather my thoughts. Pray see to it that we have the appointed room to ourselves.
A personal summons from the Scions. This must be important business indeed. Though, if it concerns anything so underhand as an assassination, I fear I can be of little help. You have made your point. It is indeed unsettling to find oneself seated across from an impassive mask. There, would this better please your grace? Or should I address you as Lady Lilira?
Yeah, that should be the first time we actually see Lolorito's face, not just that mask he is always wearing.
Nay, the deception has served its purpose. I'm glad to see you found amusement in my little jest, Lord Lolorito, but shall we proceed to the business at hand?
By all means. I must say, I'm most eager to hear your proposal.
Simply put, I would aid the refugees camped in Thanalan in their efforts to return to Alamigo. The reparations you paid in the wake of your earlier misdemeanors will be used to fund the endeavor, together with the fortune seized from the late Teleji Adeleji's estate. But this plan is not intended to benefit the displaced alone. I would make of this an investment which shall enrich Uldar and Alamigo both. And who better to consult on matters of profit than the wealthiest man in all of Thanalan? I beseech you then, Lord Lolorito, share with us your mercantile wisdom.
Ah, 'twould seem your grace has matured beyond acts of earnest yet misplaced charity. Pray tell me more. To summarize, in return for facilitating the repatriation of refugees and assisting in the establishment of new industry in Alamigo, you ask that a proportion of all subsequent profits be promised to Uldar. Huh, I am impressed, Your Grace. 'Tis an elegant solution, albeit one lacking certain crucial details, specifically which industry and where.
How swiftly you identified the weakness in my plan, just as I knew you would. Your travels have taken you across the length and breadth of Gir Abania, and you know the land far better than I. Which of the settlements you visited would best provide a home for our refugees? Which has the greatest potential to flourish, given the appropriate investment?
What about Alagana? We recently found gemstones there.
Yes, a quarry town certainly does carry the potential for profit. At least it would do were it situated anywhere near a lucrative market. It would cost more to transport the materials than they are worth, in my humble opinion.
Alakiri seems already very full as a town. It was always a lot of NPCs on very small area. Saltery, well, there are buildings that could be repaired, and it is close to Alagiri, so it would be close to a market. Saltery.
Ah, yes, that desolate little village on the shore of Loch Seld. I know the Saltery and its products well. The Imperial invasion brought an end to their more widespread distribution, much to the dismay of many a wealthy gourmand, myself included. Salt has ever been a transformative ingredient, and in this instance, I dare say, it could transform a modicum of effort into a mountain of gil.
The local citizens will need to be consulted, of course, but I trust the East Aldenar Trading Company can be relied upon to provide its assistance in negotiating a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Naturally, Your Grace. I shall dispatch representatives well versed in the extraction of this white gold and wring every last ons of profit from its production.
That sounds mean.
The Loch's bounty will contribute to Alamigo's enrichment, whilst easing the burden on the bull's aching shoulders. Just as your grace desired.
A deal is struck then.